And I'm Carolyn Bischoff. My Twitter handle is It's the Carolyn, ITSA Carolyn, one word. Um, I've been on Twitter, I don't know, maybe since like 20 something. I deleted my account at one point and then I restarted. I don't know. Anyways, um, I use it now mostly to keep in touch with people that I used to work with, but have moved on. So I keep in touch with people at different universities throughout the country, or people that I've met at conferences, just kind of see what they're up to. I also use it for conference chatter and news, humorous accounts. I follow some bots that make me laugh. I follow a bot that like helps me to drink water. I don't know. A variety of things. And then also keep in touch with friends and family and stuff like that. Also, just from around the country. So that's nice.
Yeah, so and I think since we have a small group today, maybe if we could just go around and say, you know, if you use Twitter, what you use it for, and who you are, and what your role is here at the university. It'd be great.
Oh yeah, get it.
Hi, I'm Colleen, and I've been I had an account starting in 2009, just because I heard about it, and then didn't really start using it until this past year. And then I also created like a professional one that I haven't touched, but just figure it would be important for conferences. Oh, and I'm a graduate student here in epidemiology.
My name is Shanda Hunt, and I am the public health librarian. I started a Twitter account because my boyfriend pushed me to do it, and I don't understand it, and I don't know how to use it. I am here today, but I do tweet out during conferences, and that's it. Just like, here I am. I kind of want to use it professionally, but I don't quite get how to do that. And I'm also here because when I go in and talk to graduate students, using Twitter to disseminate some of their research and promote themselves as researchers is really important, or becoming more important. So I'm interested in learning more about that.
Hi, I'm Laureen Bootang. I'm the Publishing Services Coordinator at the library. And I have a Twitter account, but I've always kind of used it just for news feed type. I follow accounts that are posting interesting information. And then, during conferences, just to kind of follow reactions and what's happening. But I don't really use it much myself to actually share information. And we get a lot of questions from our clients about how they can sort of use Twitter to connect with their community and how they can sort of raise the profile of what they're doing. So I just kind of want to hear more about maybe how I could use it practically and how I could, give other people advice and tips on how to use it more effectively.
Hey, I'm Ben. I had a Twitter account, and I don't have one anymore, mostly for my sanity. It was too much information, too fast, and I actually subscribe to the real paper, the physical paper now, and I enjoy that very much. But it was good for conferences and staying in touch with lots of scholars across the country. I really did enjoy that, but that benefit wasn't quite enough for me to keep it up and keep it active.
And we have one person online, Miguel. I don't know if you want to tell us why you're here for the chat. I don't know how to do this chat. There we go. We can check in with you. If I see something come up, I'll type on.
Okay. Great. So Carolyn and I put this together, and it's going to be fairly casual. And one of the things that we're going to do mostly is, rather than sort of like, neither Carolyn or I are like PR people, so we're not going to like beat you over the head with like, this is how you should do it in order for people to like you more, or follow your credits. Instead, we're going to show you some examples that we've found that we think are really good uses of Twitter that are connected to what is happening in research communities and on campuses, and sharing a lot of products that come out of places like the University of Minnesota. So with that, we're going to start actually with a little overview using one of the library's Twitter accounts. And talk about some of the parts of Twitter for those of you who maybe are new, but also Twitter updates a lot. And so they've added some new features on sort of the dashboard and the profile. So on Twitter, this is your profile, right? So similar to like your profile on your Facebook page. I actually think over the last couple of years, those two things have started to look a little bit more like each other, which is kind of nice because you're used to one platform, it's easier to jump into another. So on your profile, you have your profile picture, which right now is the M Library, is that little brief bio underneath, which actually I see a lot of people who will, when they use their bio, will also then link to like other Twitter profiles that they have. So if you have a personal Twitter, I've seen people who then on their bio say like, follow my work or follow me professionally, and then link to their other Twitter page, or maybe if they are leading a team Twitter or an organization Twitter, that's a good place to put it as well. There's also a spot to link to a website. So if you have like a profile, either in some sort of system, even something as simple as LinkedIn, a lot of people link to those there, or their university profile. Just quickly then going down sort of through this page, on the top here, it will show you all of your tweets is the default. So that's what you see here. So if I scroll down, I can see all of this account's tweets sort of in that never-ending feed. If you go up to the top and over a little bit, then that's how you can click and find who you are following. So these are people who you've already put follow. So follow brings you, obviously, to people that you are following on Twitter. Followers is how many people follow you. I'll go pretty quick over this since there's a familiarity with Twitter already. Knowing who your followers are is nice because occasionally there's like more people that follow you than you follow people, so it's a good way to kind of find people who are already following you who you might not be. Your likes, right? So this is what I was talking about when I say I sort of use it as this like ongoing sort of list of things that I want to come back to or read because it saves it for me. So that's all of these. Now Twitter has likes as a heart, so it's really loved. I think we'll actually go over this a little bit later. Lists are a really, I think, a really cool feature on Twitter that I don't use a lot, but when I do, I've always found them useful. So these are either lists that you create, or maybe that you are a member of, and we'll get into that in a little bit later. And then there's this brand new thing on Twitter called Moments, which I don't really know what it is. I've never used it. But apparently it's curated stories about what's happening. And then just briefly up on the top, so we were on our profile. If I click onto my feed, so this is what most of us look at then, because this is what our followers are saying. So when you log into Twitter, it usually will default to this page. So these are all the people that you're following, as well as promoted tweets. So promoted tweets are advertisements. But otherwise, this is where you would then kind of, and it updates in real time or as close to it. So this is where you can actually see those accounts that you're following or people that you're following, their content will appear here. Other things on here that we'll touch on briefly later, this section called Trends, which is over here. This is actually kind of unique to each user. So what it's taking is it's like using a larger algorithm to base these trends on your location, if Twitter knows that about you, but also based on your followers. So these are trends, some of which may be like nation or global, worldwide, but also they're based on who you follow. So the more specific your community is on Twitter, the more specific trends, hashtags that will show up. One other thing quick that I wanted to talk about is when you set up your Twitter account, you have an option to either make, obviously, a public or a private account. So private accounts, people can't see any of the content that you tweet. So if this were a private account, none of this would show up here. It would still show me like the account's profile picture, but it wouldn't show me the content that they're actually tweeting. So again, that's if you're using maybe Twitter for a more personalized reason, or you just don't have any reason that you would want sort of random strangers to see the content that you're tweeting. Public accounts, on the flip side, look like this. Anybody can see it. Even actually people who don't have Twitter accounts can see the tweets that you have. So that's a big difference. I think it's important to think about when you're using Twitter what you want to use it for, and then make that determination of whether or not you want a private account or a public account.
Okay. So when you set up your Twitter account, the first thing that you see is a bunch of suggestions for you to follow, and that's really the first thing that, I mean, so to build your feed when you go to the home page, it's all about who you follow. So Twitter will give you suggestions, and they're usually like brands or famous people, like People Mag, New York Times, like politicians, celebrities, that kind of thing, is the first thing that they'll give you. There are also journals that have Twitter accounts, funding agencies that have Twitter accounts, newspapers, societies, and then of course individual people. To really make the most out of Twitter, it takes some time to find people to follow, and that's what I'm going to talk about: how to find people and find accounts that will be worth your time. There's a lot of ways to tackle this, to create a home feed of people and organizations that you care about, and because that's what's being shoved in your face, kind of. An easy place to start. I'm looking at this from the angle of like finding your research community presence on Twitter. An easy place to start is like your department or colleagues that you have, and just dumping them into the search bar. But this has like sort of medium success, so I'm really into MMO scholarship, and I'm interested to hear what she has to say. So I could pop up Emma's profile. Fantastic. Immigration syllabus, like that's the kind of stuff that I'm interested in. I like to think of this as sort of like how reference lists or bibliographies are really useful for finding other papers when you're doing like a literature review or trying to like do some research. Twitter offers a lot of really nice tools that you kind of like do the same thing. Instead of punching people into the search bar and just seeing if they're there and like going through your department list and typing everyone's name in, if you find one or two people that are colleagues of yours, you can learn a lot about the research community that you have. So let me see. I actually made a list of a bunch of people that we can use, so I don't have to dig through them as followers, as awesome as that would be. Okay.
They're all my cousins.
My mom and my sweet. All right, so I made a list of people at SCU that we can start with, just to kind of show you an example and give some illustrations of what I'm going to look at. So we have the Dean of CLA here. We have Professor of Sociology, Amy Kircher. Okay, so I'm just going to pick one of these people. I actually have not done this before, so we're just going to see how it goes. Try you. Hello. Michelle. One thing we can do is we can see who Michelle follows. So if Michelle is my colleague, we can see what account she follows and see if there's anyone I know, or see if there's any kind of organizations or things that I'd be interested in following too. That's one way to go about it. If I want to follow somebody, I just hit the follow button, or there's a lot of other things you can do. You can set up a list and put people in a list. If you don't necessarily want them in your home feed, but you just like to kind of have a way to keep track of what they're tweeting if you're not planning on checking. You can create a list and add them to the list. Another thing you can do is if you pop into one of these accounts, over on the side, there's a little who to follow thing, and that's just Twitter's algorithm kind of like making connections between this person and other people like them. That's another tool you can use. to see if that something shows up in that, who you might know, see if Twitter's algorithms can sweep something up and find a nice account for you to follow. There's another thing we can do, and I'm going to go back. It looks like okay, we can also look at Michelle's followers, same deal. Another thing we can do is look at the list that Michelle subscribes to. So Michelle made a public list. You can make public and private lists. So she might have private lists that I can't see, but she has one that I can. The sociologists I've encountered, and there are 800 people on this list. Good, nice. So we can actually go in. So this is her list. It gives us a feed, like the home page, but we can switch to see the list members. And we just get a list of people with their profiles. And so to find people that way too, just digging through lists. So you can probably see how this is sort of like using a bibliography to find other papers. Like you kind of just like use the work that someone else has done to put together followers that are relevant to them, and build up a list of people that you'd like to follow so your feed is kind of relevant to what you want. All right. I also made a list. Hang on, let me pop over. Oh no, I lost it. Hang on, get this again. A couple of things. I was publishers, no, for funding agencies. Publishers. Did I not open that? Try that again. Funding agencies. Okay. Journals and funding agencies are, they a lot of times have a Twitter presence, but what I've seen and probably what you've experienced as well if you've used Twitter is these tend to be like very, like one-directional accounts. They share news, they share like, you know, new fellowships, calls for proposals, that kind of thing. But there isn't a whole lot of give and take. And I think that's one of the, like, when you're putting together your followers and you're finding people, just keep that in mind. Sometimes if you follow a bunch of funding agencies, like NSF is kind of like a big offender for me. I had to unfollow them because it's like 3 tweets, 4 tweets, 5 tweets a day, and it's just like, there's too much NSF in my feed. So I made a list and put NSF in a list so I don't have to see it in my home feed. But yeah, just keep that in mind when you're putting together a list of followers. It can be really great because you might see news that you wouldn't have otherwise seen. But it's not really like, I think one of the beauties of Twitter is that conversation that can happen. Those are a few tools. Lists, followers. You can also look at likes, or just punch people in to the search bar. I just like it a little bit better. Type people's names into the search bar. One other thing with conferences, that's another nice way to find people, is people who are tweeting around a conference that's relevant to you. A recent example is like my favorite Twitter conference hashtag, the Shakespeare Association conference. So when you do a search, the search breaks it up into top, latest. So top is kind of Twitter's algorithm, things that have had the most engagement, retweets. Latest is chronological, things that have the hashtag in it. And then people are people who have used the hashtag. Whoops. People are, okay. This would be a profile search, sorry. Shut up. I don't know if there's anything else coming out here. Anyway, so you can dig around in that and see people who are tweeting stuff, and then also the who to follow thing kind of pulls people out who are using this hashtag, so that's nice. Yeah, so what are we doing? So we just wanted to take like, I don't know, 5 or 10 minutes, for you to just kind of dig around on Twitter. You might have been doing that right now.
Lorraine, would you like to do this? Oh, okay. So Lorraine's question, for those of you online, was, what is our favorite app for Twitter? Yeah, so that's a good one. I have something to share about that. So, first of all, when you use Twitter on your phone, it looks quite a bit different from your desktop. So just to keep that keep that in mind. Like Twitter on your phone just kind of looks like this. So it strips all of that stuff that's on the side and kind of hides it. So usually if I want to like set up my Twitter account or like increase the number of people who I'm following in this one specific subject area or related to this journal. I usually do that on my desktop just because it's so simplified on the mobile app that it takes a little bit more like back and forth in order to find all of that. But then one thing that I really like using on my desktop at conferences is TweetDeck. You guys have yours somewhere. So TweetDeck is only for your desktop. This was apparently the library's TweetDeck. Walter Library's TweetDeck. So TweetDeck it doesn't work on your phone. It just you have to do it in a browser, so it just really shows up really small on a mobile app or on your phone. But when you do it on your desktop, this is super nice because you can kind of keep track of multiple things at a time. So this is what I use at conferences when I'm following along, because I went to a conference and I couldn't figure out how people were so asked about retweeting things. How could they see all of them? Because there's a little bit of lag, when you're following along on your phone, or even on your desktop Twitter page. And it's mostly because people are using TweetDeck. So what you can do on this, which is nice, I won't go into it too much, but if you just search TweetDeck, it'll pop up in Google. But you can customize this dashboard. So this one isn't customized. It just has sort of the fairly, this is the home, so this is that news feed. This is the Twitter account's notifications, messages. But what you can do is you can build these little columns and you can make them specific to whatever you're doing. So you could make a column for an entire hashtag. And that way, if you're at a conference, it weeds everything out that's specific to that hashtag you're following, which is super nice. Because then you're not trying to follow along on your newsfeed, but you keep getting, promotions for Dove shower gel or whatever. It will just show whatever it is that you set it up. You can do it for a person, you can do it for anything. So that's a cool one.
Yeah, and the Twitter app works pretty well on for conferences, I think. If you don't want to lug your laptop around at the conference or something like that, the Twitter app works great. You can do the same thing. You can set up a save search for a hashtag. So when you go to lunch, you come back, you don't have to kind of go right to it. And it's pretty when there's new tweets, it'll say new tweets and this tweet scrolled up to the top. So that's what I use with the battery attached. Twitter stuff the battery on.
Yeah, on TweetDeck. Yeah, for sure. Yes. Okay, so if you go to the plus button on the side, which is add columns, you can do it. I believe you just hit as a search. And then you type in your hashtag. And then there it is. Click. Yeah, so you do it as a search. Yes, you can. Yep, if you click on this toggle button thing, there's a remove down at the bottom here. Yeah, because otherwise, I don't use TweetDeck that often, so every time I open it up, it's just whatever I was using last time, which usually isn't relevant. Especially with conference hashtags, because they typically put the year in them somehow. So for this Shakespeare Association conference, right, it has 17 at the end. So then if I come back the next year or the year before, I wouldn't want 17. I would want 16. Yeah.
TweetDeck's also nice for setting up kind of specific searches. I'll give you an example that might not be relevant, maybe. So I run the Walter Library Twitter account, and so we look for people don't always mention us when they're talking about Walter Library. So TweetDeck's really nice to set up a search that's for the words Walter Library or the hashtag Walter Library or at Walter Library. I could perhaps if you're a researcher and people you're giving a presentation or something like that, a lot of times what'll happen is we'll say, thanks Shanda Hunt for coming to our whatever. You can set up a search for your name if that's relevant. If you want to acknowledge people who are there. It seems a little narcissistic, but I think it's a totally fair.
Yeah, and another thing that TweetDeck is really nice for is if you run multiple Twitter accounts, you can use TweetDeck to like have both open at the same time, which is nice because on like the desktop Twitter you have to log out.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then on the mobile one you can flip between them, but it kind of is like it's easy to get lost of which account you're in. So I think that's why like you name the corporation frequently has like mistake tweets sent out because it's really confusing to go back and forth between the two. But in TweetDeck, one nice thing that you can do is you can add accounts. So whatever accounts that you manage, people can add you as a manager via TweetDeck so that it doesn't ever interact with your personal one. It's like two separate things, but you can see it on the same screen, which is nice.
Yeah, I had to run a conference Twitter account at one point, and that was like a lifesaver for me.
Yeah.
Just to have it, because that was like we needed to be
following
the conference hashtag, but also like retweeting things from our account, and like it was just nice to have all of that separate.
Yeah, I mean,
that's part of your service.
Yeah. One other thing I would say about it's like if you ever end up managing like a live stream or a like Twitter account for a conference, is the more people that you have, the more activity that you have over amount of hashtags, the more spam that you will get in your feed. So I was at a conference this fall. We had our Twitter feed displayed up on a big projector in the hall because we had people who were participating all over the globe. And it was really nice until like maybe on day 2, then we got a lot of bots and spams, and it was all butts.
Well, pictures of butts?
Yeah.
Oh,
like really big on the screen.
On your screen?
Yeah. So it was a bummer.
It wasn't a butt conference.
No, it wasn't a butt conference.
Okay.
So just a little bit of warning. Because if you trend, your hashtag ends up trending, then you get a lot of. Any other questions about anything we've covered so far? We'll have some time for questions. Otherwise, if it's about something that we've covered already, yeah.
So I'll tell you, I have a friend who works as like a marketing person at, what's he now? The Association of Anesthesiologists. I can't remember. So like the way that they do it, when they put out an announcement, the announcement goes, there's like an order in the communications plan. Like the announcement goes up on the website, it goes out to Facebook, it goes out to Twitter, it goes out to like the email newsletter, and it's kind of like in a succession. Like I would say if Twitter is annoying to use for that particular purpose, then like sign up for their email, or do something else, because like communications seems for those types of things, unless it's like a small funding, like a foundation or something, and it's like maybe they don't have like a marketing person or a communications director or something like that. Like you can kind of expect that that's how most people will do it. So it's sort of up to you. Like if you like using Twitter for that, then I think it's fine. It's not necessarily faster, and it's not necessarily Mm-hmm. Yep. I'm sorry, thank you. Shanda's question was for funding agencies who use Twitter to post calls for proposals. Is using Twitter to discover those things faster or a better option?
Yeah.
Question 2.
Mm-hmm. Good question. So that was about like how do you know the hashtag? Perfect question.
Yeah, and that's a complicated question. So like practically for me and my use of Twitter, it's like sort of serendipitous. It's a mix of both. So like I will see all of a sudden on my feed some people that I follow will be all tweeting from one hashtag. It'll be a conference. It'll just be like flooded with hashtags. Sometimes when you're at a conference, there'll be like a conference hashtag in the program, and that's how you'll know. Sometimes I've been at smaller conferences where we all look around, we're like, what's the hashtag? What's the whatever? And like it hasn't been quite determined. So that's another way to do it. For things that are like, so there's something that I've seen more frequently with like research communities are live chat. So, you know, someone either maybe part of an organization or like as a function of their role somehow, or maybe just as like a grassroots thing. There might be, I'm sorry if you're going to talk about this. There's going to be a live, like a live chat that has a hashtag. Everyone logs in at 7 o'clock, and there's like, usually the format goes like you introduce yourself, and then there's like a series of questions that people respond to. So everyone's kind of like on Twitter at the same time, and it's a pre-agreed upon time. For those, like, it's really, those are sort of serendipitous for me. It's like who you know that does that and who's a part of it, and it's just like sort of digging through people and seeing what their activity is.
Yeah, I would just add that I think for me, like the hashtag is a lot like when you get involved with a community for the first time, whatever it is, and you have to like learn all of their acronyms. And the easiest way to do that is to like listen to people who are in that community. So another way to find hashtags that are relevant is through followers. So like what Carolyn showed about sort of growing that network, similar to what you would do with like citations, finding connected people, is then to look on their tweets for what hashtags are they using. So like I just pulled up a random University of Minnesota. This is a library account, but then there's other University of Minnesota accounts. So I can see in here like hashtag that they frequently use is hashtag UMN Proud. So like clearly that's a hashtag. I mean, sometimes then when you click on a hashtag, it will load all the tweets that use that. Sometimes like there'll be like only one tweet, which that was just somebody trying to start a hashtag or it's a typo. But that's a good way to do it, is to look within your followers for what hashtags they're using. I mean, this morning I came across one which was like SciComm, which was science communication, and like that was a whole group of people who I started to see a few people on my feed who were using that one. So sort of that like that growth, I think, is a really good way to do.
Yeah, I think Twitter historians. Am I saying that
Yeah.
right? Twitter historians. So like historians on Twitter use that hashtag. There's some education ones, education technology, education, ed tech. Yeah, and you just kind of get to know that because you watch your followers as you kind of build up the people you're following. Not your followers, the people you follow.
Yeah. I think also, like Carolyn was showing, the organizations and funding agencies, sometimes those, because they have a marketing team, will like really push a hashtag, which sometimes it's just full of like their marketing people pushing things out through that hashtag. So I kind of always take that with a grain of salt, just depending on who that's coming from, because it's not always relevant. Yeah, Lori. Right, so Lorraine was the hard-hitting question of how do you mute a hashtag? Wow.
Fortunately, Twitter, this is like a new feature. You weren't able to mute keywords before a certain point. You can mute accounts. Now you can mute words, which is great. That's actually in the privacy settings. So this is for like if something's blowing up your feed. This is also useful for like just things that, I don't know, there might be words or concepts that you just don't want to see in your life. I don't want to give examples, but like whatever. There just might be things for your personal whatever. But there we go. You don't want to see any butts. You don't want to see any tweets that have the word butt in it. So under settings and privacy, there's muted accounts, and this is where you can mute people. Oh, this could have been embarrassing. I should have like maybe checked. We don't want to see these people. Woo. You can also do muted words. Okay,
What if it was like all of us?
I know. Like, I'm just gonna roll the dice. Got it. Okay, so they must have met me together. Woohoo! So yeah, so you just say like, this is, so say like, I don't want to see the Shakespeare Association anymore. So I'm gonna add a muted word, and then it'll give you an option for how long you want to do it. And I think you can set it. Right. Right. Yep. And then you can also, I'm going to get rid of this, you can also change how your notifications are set up. You can, by default, use notifications from people who don't follow you or, you know, just a variety of things. And this is useful for, like, harassment purposes or, you know, like, there's a lot of crummy people and bots on Twitter. You probably, like, heard of people getting harassed on Twitter. So these are features that can be used, like, if you or people you know are getting harassed because they're, like, have a sensitive research topic or because their research or whatever, like, their conversations happen on keywords that, like, bots kind of look at, this is a good way to just, like, weed out accounts that, like, you know, that haven't been confirmed. So, like, someone just set it up, like, yesterday and just, you know, control.
Yes, I had to use this because I once tweeted about, I went out for frozen yogurt, and I tweeted #Froyo, and then I was, like, bombarded with Froyo places that have Twitter accounts were, like, sending me messages.
Yeah. I didn't know the Froyo community was so, like,
Aggressive.
Did they want you to, like, share pictures with your Froyo?
They were just like, cherry berries better than orange leaves. Like, kind of, yeah. Like, so we can continue to take questions, but Carolyn and I now have, like, a few examples of accounts and tweets that we thought really kind of exemplify, like, how you can do this engagement with a research community. So I'm just going to kind of pull up a few. So there's a lot of different ways to structure tweets and to try to, I don't know, sort of engage on Twitter. It's really up to you and, like, how you want to use your Twitter, how much time you spend. So we're not going to tell you what to do, but kind of just show you some examples. So this is an example of one that I really like because Audrey Waters has a blog that's fairly popular, but she also tweets out, like, the blog posts that she has. And one thing that I think that really works with this is that she adds a little bit of comment to it. So it's not just a tweet with, like, a half sentence from the preview of the blog, but she shapes it a little bit. So I think this is a good example of if you have something else that's going on that you can kind of incorporate that into Twitter, and it's really easy. I'm just going to kind of go rapid fire down this one. Here's another one that does the same. So this one, John Tennant, he's a PhD in the UK. So he also has a blog called Fossil and Fit, and so he also does that, tweet out his blog post and gives it some context. And the other nice thing that he does then is he incorporates the hashtags into it. So hashtag open access is obviously like a general hashtag that's always going live. But RDAP is a specific conference that's happening right now. So that's kind of an overlap of both things. He's getting it into the larger community that follows hashtag open access, but then also into that conference that's happening. And I actually don't think John is at that conference, but he knows that the people who are there are within his sort of group of people that he wants to get the word out to. There's a lot of other kind of cool things happening on Twitter. I've talked about this one before, but this is sort of, this is specific to library science, but I know there are other ones that this happens to. So this is a little bit like what Carolyn was talking about a sort of intentional community that moves via Twitter. So this is a journal club. They have like a website. They pick an article every month to read, and then they discuss it, typically via Twitter. So they have their own Twitter accounts, and they also have a hashtag, which is right on their banner, hashtag LISJC. So that's kind of a cool one.
And what's nice about these sort of things, like any of these live chats or these journal clubs, like there's no barrier to entry. You just start tweeting at it. Like for almost all of these, like I don't think Twitter's sort of unique where it's like, you know, there are private Facebook groups in certain communities that are closed and Twitter is open. So
Yeah.
it's not, I think with some communities it's sort of like hard to break in, or like you don't really know, it's sort of uncomfortable, but like you're just sitting behind a computer screen, you could just start talking to people, and just start throwing things into these conversations.
Yeah. So there's another similar example. This project has since been retired, but it was fairly active when it was live. They have almost 2,500 seats. So this was a project actually here at the University of Minnesota. So they had a podcast, and then they also tweeted along with that. And so not only did they just tweet out like when new things were available related to them, they also kind of curated their feed to include sort of all of those conversations that were happening within the podcast, but capturing them from other people's Twitter accounts. So it's cool because they had, you could listen to the podcast, but then also you could come here to kind of engage with that community. This is a scientist in California, and he had kind of a cool retweet this morning that I saw, which was Alan Alda's Twitter account. It was like a tweet about a postdoc position that was open. So that was kind of cool because Alan Alda knows his followers and knows who's gonna retweet it. So yeah, I kind of like that. It's another example of like things that you'll find on Twitter that, again, this might be something that like is buried somewhere in your email and a listserv, but it's nice on Twitter, kind of rises to the top depending on your followers. And finally, I'm going to throw one more here. Here's somebody who's actually advertising a course that they're teaching, so which I thought was cool. This is at UC Davis. So they're teaching it. They send it out because they know, again, that they have people in their community that it would be relevant to. So again, this is like all these people kind of, once you find them, then more and more tweets will fill your feed that are relevant to the work that you're doing.
Oh, yeah. Well, we have a hashtag, use the group, but so, I don't know, have you come across anything so far, or are you aware of hashtags that you might follow?
Hashtag, well, hashtag UMN proud.
Perfect.
I'm just gonna, and this is like a whole nother topic, but I'm just gonna really like quickly and not do it that much justice by going over it really quick. But as was mentioned in the beginning, I mean now there's a lot of research that there's a new sort of approach to put value on how research is disseminated sort of in this more casual social network environment. So this is actually just sort of a dashboard for another product that sort of gathers all that information. But this is a specific research article, and it has been tweeted like 2,000 times. So I just want to bring this up as an example to know that like research is being shared on Twitter, and there are now tools that are trying to gather those metrics. So it's kind of a cool, I think, example to know that people are sharing and engaging and talking about research on Twitter, which is something that, I mean, certainly wasn't the case a few years ago even.
I'm going to talk quickly about some etiquette. One of the things about using Twitter, and probably one of the reasons why some people just stop using Twitter, is because you kind of have to be engaged with it. And there are ways you can set up, like you can set up notifications on your phone, so that if somebody tweets at you, you can tweet back in a timely way. There's also, you can set up notifications for people, for you can set up a hashtag, a notification for hashtag, I think, as well. So like when new things happen, that might be kind of overwhelming at a conference, but if you follow a hashtag, like there's one in libraries called Data Libs for librarians who work with data management services. You can set up a notification for that to stay on top of things. It's important. So like Bill Tolman's a professor of chemistry, and he's been tweeting a lot about the March for Science over the last few days. A lot of his students are working on posters and that kind of thing. and someone got in touch with him to ask him for a quote for a story they're doing. And that's the kind of thing where it's like, if you tweet back 3 days later, that's, it's too late. So it's sort of important to stay on top of things. And also just one thing about like engaging on Twitter, if there's, there might be like something that is an article that's tweeted or something like that, or someone shares an article, and then you can reply to that tweet, and other people might reply to it. You could get into a conversation with people. It's just good etiquette to like, if you're not actually responding to like the person who made the original tweet, just to take them off the replies. So if I was gonna respond, I shouldn't have done that. Hang on. See if I can. Ruh-roh. So like if I wanted to respond to Bill, like I could take Temp Social off of here, take Sarah off of here. So I'm just responding to Bill and not kind of reply alling everybody. And also if you are, it's like a conversation veers into like this sort of more, you're sharing conference details with someone, or you're trying to share a phone number, direct messages are an option on Twitter between two people who follow each other. So that's usually a better way to share like more personal information or private information, or to have a conversation kind of off the public, because any conversations you have in Twitter are public. So if you don't want that, DMs are the way to go. So we talked a little bit about tools of dealing with harassment, muting accounts, muting words. We just have a few more. I had a couple of examples of profiles that I liked. One of them is Becky Strauss. So she used to be a grad student here in geology. She now works at Rutgers, and she's really active on Twitter. She does something that's kind of fun. She participates in sort of a shared Twitter account called Geosci Tweet, that is a Twitter account that different people own, like every week or every 2 weeks, and they tweet about their research. There's another one called Real Scientists, that's like week by week people sign up to take it. You might have heard of like Sweden's actual account, like for the nation of Sweden, is run by different students every week. So those are all examples of like, this is sort of something that Becky does to outreach. So Twitter can be a nice outreach tool as well. Let me back it up. And another thing is like, she really lets her personality kind of like guide her. She does a really nice balance of like personal and professional tweets. And I thought Phil Tolman also has like a really nice balance of personal and professional. He promotes the people he advises. He promotes his students when they have a conference. He shares their slides. He shares their posters. He's really good about using Twitter as like a way to promote his colleagues as well. But he does a nice bit of professional and personal. And I wanted to show Amy Kircher too. So she's like a little bit different. She does food defense. I heard her speak one time, and I just wanted to show her because she does a lot of talks. She goes to a lot of places. She's invited a lot of places, and so throughout her feed, you'll see conference hashtags all over the place, like for everything. She talks at, and then she also kind of tweets out posters. She does a lot of traveling, so if she sees a poster she likes, she tweets it out. And sometimes it's nice just to ask the person whose poster is cool. Most people are pretty okay with it.
Yeah, and I guess an example that I would add to that is Erin Hodgson, who is a faculty member at Iowa State, but also works in their extension and outreach. So she has kind of a dual job. One that's traditional faculty position, and then the other half of it is to actually go out to all the 99 counties of Iowa to promote state-sponsored services, and hers are specifically related to agriculture and natural resources. And since she has such an engagement aspect to her job, she uses Twitter to tweet out a lot of cool photos that she takes and of people that she meets around the state of Iowa, which is really great. And she gets retweeted a lot by both the university and by the extension program because she's really using it as like the place to interact and to also share stories of people she's meeting every day, sort of back to the university. She also has like a podcast that she tweets out. I think it's like about like corn pests or something very Iowan. So I really like hers, and she has great photos, and she's really responsive on it. So I actually knew her via Twitter before I had ever met her in person, which was great because then I knew, for me it was really nice because I knew all about her research and what she does with the university before we even ever had a conversation, which was cool. So, yeah, I think all three of those are like people who have very different purposes and reasons for using Twitter, and Carolyn and I both identified them as being successful in accomplishing what they want to accomplish.
And I think all of them are sort of like, to me, Twitter, they're the only like way that I could see not great to use Twitter is just like logging on once a week and just being like, I did this thing, and then like logging off and not engaging. All these people like really engage, and like I'm totally guilty of that, just like popping in and being like, I ate some pie, and then like you know, heading off or whatever. But like I think one of the more valuable ways of engaging with the research community on Twitter is like staying engaged and responding to people and having conversations.
Right. Well, we hope you learned something today, something new. And feel free to ask us any questions afterwards. Shoot us a tweet. All right. Well, thank you. Happy Friday.
Yeah, thanks for coming. Oh.
Yeah, that's a good question about the links because I thought like 2 years ago Twitter said that they're gonna just shorten them automatically. That doesn't happen. That's all my things.
They do shorten. I know when I put long links in, they shorten it, but it's not as short as Bitly. You don't have to. You can do whatever you want. Like if you're writing a tweet, it's like I'm over the limit by 2 characters. Like change your link to Bitly. Yeah. Oh yeah, 147. That includes spaces. It doesn't include replies anymore. So you see that if you reply to somebody like at the Carolyn and then started replying to me, that would pick up your character limit, but it doesn't anymore. They changed that. Yes. And it was at a small conference the other day. So Shannon was asking, she was taking photos. Are we still on? You stopped sharing. Okay, but we're still on audio. Okay, so Shannon was asking whether if she wanted a certain account to see something, whether she should at them, do like at that account, or use the conference hashtag. And I think in that case, if you really wanted to see like an account, if you wanted an account to see it, then you could tweet it right at them. If you also wanted other people, if you put that at the beginning of your tweet, then other people wouldn't see it. So there are a lot of ways people get around this. You could post the photo and then put like the at the end. Just as long as the at isn't the first character, then everyone can see it. So some people put like a period in front of the at if they still want other people to see it. Or you can put like the link in to the photo, put the photo in, and then put their account. Does that make sense? I kind of explained that in a weird about way.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. There's a comment about tweeting at companies to get tech support help. And that's really true. Yeah. Like sometimes it's easier than like submitting a ticket, waiting for an email.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's from where? Free stickers?
Oh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. All right, so just whenever we can get free stuff.
Yeah.
Free stuff on Twitter through the app.
I went to a pretty big, I mean, library specific, but a pretty big conference just a month ago, and one of the like conference like name tag add-on ribbon things that they had was IRL, which is in real life. So I think that's like proof that like connections are happening via Twitter in the in communities before often they're even happening in person. So that's funny. And I did meet a bunch of people who I didn't recognize them as humans. Only by their Twitter handle.
There's like tiny little square face.
Yeah. Okay. Well. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Oh, good.